So continues the curse of the alternate jersey, or jerseys, I guess, for the Kraken. What's Kraken, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Kraken once again lose a game in a jersey that isn't their normal home or away. They have now fallen to, actually, I can't remember exactly what the record is, but they've only ever won one game. I think it's 1-10-2 or something like that in jerseys other than their normal home or away. That one win, by the way, I think is a one win that most people will remember. But in case you've forgotten, a good hint would be that the Kraken have never won a game with any kind of alternate jersey indoors. Yeah, the Winter Classic is the only time the Kraken have ever won a game in a jersey that wasn't their normal home or away. This one being a third jersey night, it's in a lot of ways a very similar game to what just happened against the Red Wings. The Kraken play a really good game. I wouldn't necessarily say that they outplayed the Wild in this one. It was a pretty close game pretty much the entire way, almost a toss-up, maybe with a slight lean towards the Wild, but not very much. Very well played, I think, in really all facets by the Kraken. In the end, though, they find a way to lose in the third period, giving up a goal, and then two more get tacked on with empty netters to get us to the final score of 4-1. Which obviously, unfortunately, continues the trend of losing as the Kraken have now lost 5 straight in regulation, continuing to tumble down the standings and not make anything of the games that they do have in hand. They still have a few in hand on every team in the division, but they're not making anything of them. And now it's gotten to a point where I suppose you can look at it as the silver lining, as they are playing better in these last couple games than they did in the 3 previous regulation losses. But at the same time, we're now seeing them lose games that they're playing well in, which is not something that they had really done up until the Detroit game just a couple nights previous. And we talked about in that one how we'd actually seen them find ways to get points, even get wins in games that they didn't necessarily play in a way that would suggest that they should have gotten points or wins. And now in 2 straight games, they certainly played well enough to get at least 1 point in each of these last 2 games, but they give up late goals in the third period, uncharacteristic to how they played third periods leading up to these last couple games. They'd been playing pretty tight third periods, and if it gets close, then they were able to at least get it to those overtime, and now twice in a row they aren't able to get it all the way to overtime to at least get that 1 point, which every loss that goes by, those points are more and more valuable. Unless enough losses go by, in which case those points will be detrimental, but I don't think we're quite ready to fully give up and get to that point yet, at least not all of us. Though I will say, at least with this game, if you are looking for silver linings and reasons to be optimistic that they might be on their way out of this losing trend that has started, is for the first time in a long time, and one of the first times this season, at least since early on in the season when the power play was playing pretty well, the Kraken were positive on special teams. They kill 3 penalties, which is the first time that they've killed 3 straight penalties in what feels like a long time. It really hasn't been all that long. It's 3 straight games with the 2 against the Oilers and then the 1 against the Red Wings where they'd let up 7 power play goals in 8 power plays. Before that, at the end of the road trip, they had killed off 3 straight power plays across 2 games. But even with that, they were still coming into this game as the worst penalty kill in the NHL, and I'm not actually sure if this game changed that. Still, 3 for 3 on the penalty kill is definitely a vast improvement from what we've seen, and aside from the first power play for the Wild where they did let up a bit of a breakaway chance, Grubauer was still able to save that, and the Kraken survived that one and then did a good job killing off the next 2 chances the Wild got on the power play. Meanwhile, the power play for the Kraken got their 1 goal in the game on a pretty nice little passing play, which we'll get to here in a second, but a good night for the special teams, which is a very welcome change of pace. Unfortunately, at 5-on-5, the Kraken just couldn't find a way to solve Gustafsson. And I suppose that might as well bring us into the full recap of the game as we get into the first period. Although first, actually, there is 1 big lineup change here for the Kraken. I suppose 2, as Grubauer does end up getting the start over Decord, which is something I was hoping that we would see coming out of the last game against the Red Wings. They do, in fact, put Grubauer in, and he looked very sharp in this game. We can talk about it towards the end, but he was very good for the Kraken, gave them every chance to win this, but in pretty typical fashion, they give him no goal support. The other more notable change in the lineup for the Kraken, though, and a pretty disheartening, just generally sad update for the Kraken is that from the block shot that he had midway through the previous game, something happened, whether it's a break or some kind of lasting injury that's going to take a while to recover from. Berkeley Catton is now out week to week, which not only means that he's going to miss a chunk of season where he was starting to play really well, but definitely liking what we saw from that line with him and Wright, the pair. I talked about how much I liked the two of them together in the previous one, and Kakko was looking pretty good on the other side of that. That line still, I think, was maybe even the best line in this game, just with Yanni Newman stepping into Catton's spot, or actually Wright going to center instead of Catton, and then Newman stepping into Wright's spot on the wing. So the line kept moving pretty well, but with how well Catton had been playing and starting to get more and more chances, you knew that the points were going to start coming more and more for him. Yeah, it just really sucks. Not only from a team perspective where they could really use Catton and what he was starting to consistently provide for the team, especially offensively, but he was still playing well in his own end for the most part. It also sucks that not only is Catton going to miss some time with the Kraken, but this now pretty much is going to kill his chances of playing at the World Juniors, which, I mean, how much that would have helped his development, who really knows, but it's something that he's not going to get a chance to do again age-wise, so, and also just wasn't fun to watch from a fan perspective. But now with this injury, he's going to be out from the World Juniors and also out for the Kraken for what a week to week usually means a somewhat extended period of time. Maybe not in the span of months, but we probably won't see him the rest of December, which I suppose, to be perfectly fair, admittedly is reading into the whole week to week thing maybe a little bit. Technically speaking, week to week means he could be back in a week's time, or maybe 2 weeks towards the end of December before the Christmas break. But especially since the Kraken have had a bit of a habit of having day-to-day players be out day-to-day for weeks at a time, when they're going right out and saying week to week, I suppose maybe it's better than instantly going to IR, though I wouldn't be surprised if we see him retroactively put on IR in, say, a week's time. So I wouldn't be expecting to see Catton back in the immediate near future. Hopefully Yanni Newman can really take advantage of the opportunity he is going to get with Catton out, which is, it does suck that this is the reason that Newman is going to finally get a little bit more playing time, but I suppose on the bright side, it is good that Newman is again going to get a little bit more significant playing time and get to play alongside Wright, who could use a little bit more offensive boost, which at least one game in, it does seem like that line is going to work out pretty well. Hopefully that continues. But anyway, with that and wishing Catton a speedy recovery, we can get into the game itself, where pretty much right out of the gates within the first couple of minutes, the Kraken send the Wild to their first power play. And based on how not only the penalty kill has been going for the Kraken, but also how the last game started against the Red Wings, where the Kraken sent them to an early power play that opened up the scoring, there was, I think, a lot of Kraken fans, if not maybe even most Kraken fans, that at least those of us that watched the majority of the games were probably expecting and definitely emotionally prepared for this to be a 1-0 Wild lead within the next 2 minutes. But happily, the Kraken kill this one off, and then also kill off the next Wild power play as we get towards the middle of the period. A start to the game that not only do the Kraken, send the Wild to that early power play, but they just, back at 5-on-5, even after killing it off, looked flat. They just not much of anything offensively. They're occasionally getting into the offensive end. They're at least not really allowing the Wild to get much going offensively either, but it's pretty uneventful, and anything that could even be remotely considered offense is in the Kraken end of the ice. The Kraken don't even get a shot on goal until just under the halfway, or just past the halfway point of the period, just under 10 minutes left. They finally get their first shot on Gustafsson. He makes the save no problem. And then I suppose at the very least, the Kraken did start to build a little bit of momentum. A shift later, it's Wright's line out there, and actually Wright with a nice pass up to Kakko to get a bit of a chance one-on-one with Gustafsson. He isn't quite given enough space to try and wrap it around the far side where there might have been an opportunity there. Tries to chip it on, but Gustafsson's got that pretty well locked down. Minnesota goaltending is quite strong if you haven't been following the Wild season. Gustafsson, their starter, is slowly getting worked out of that starting position, not because of how he's been playing so much as the backup Wallstedt, who's like 4 shutouts in his last 8 games or something. It's crazy. Minnesota goaltending, I mean, we can talk about how the Kraken goal scoring has been an issue all season long. They did actually start to score some goals in the last couple of games. They were just giving up way too many back the other way. But in this particular game, while it did take the Kraken a while to get the offense going, and it doesn't help that after this chance from Kakko is shut down, where it looked like the Kraken were building some momentum, that gets killed off by sending the Wild to another power play. But at least in this particular game, I think the lack of scoring might have had a little bit more to do with the opponent and less to do necessarily with the Kraken, who did get their chances. There could have been more of them. It wasn't necessarily the same offensive game as we saw in really even the games against the Oilers. Well, at least not the game in Edmonton or the game against the Red Wings recently. But the Kraken did get their chances. They had a couple of extended shifts in the offensive end over the course of the game. They even got towards the net, got some net front presence, but just really were not able to generate much through the Minnesota defense. And Gustafsson was on his game pretty much from the start. I mean, like I already said, the only Kraken goal ends up coming on a power play early or midway through the second period. We do end up getting through the rest of the first period, by the way. I got a little bit sidetracked there, but we get through the rest of the first period with one unsuccessful Kraken power play, which they do get that power play from something that I shouldn't skip over, which was an absolutely massive hit from Vince Dunn. A clean, massive hit, and I haven't really seen anybody saying otherwise, but Vince Dunn just absolutely lights up Matt Zuccarello, which it looked like he kind of gets hit and then his head ends up hitting the ice after the hit. Might have gotten a bit of a concussion. Hopefully Zuccarello's all right. I mean, you're never hoping to see injuries. You never want to see them for obviously your own players, but yeah, even opposing players. He did end up coming back into the game a little bit, but we'll see if he ends up going into concussion protocol. I definitely do hope that he is okay. More so than normal, if that's even really a thing. I've just always really liked Zuccarello for a number of reasons. He's a fun player to watch. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Wild, even as an ex-Avalanche fan, but also because he's one of the few Norwegian players in the NHL. Regardless, hopefully Zuccarello's all right. This, though, definitely a clean hit, and one that Zuccarello saw it coming all the way. It's not like Dunn snuck up on him like Marchment kind of snuck up on Nurse with that hit a couple of games ago. This one, they're coming at each other. Zuccarello's looking at Dunn at least for a couple seconds, or maybe a second half before the hit comes. They're clearly coming together. Zuccarello sees him coming, and it's like he just didn't expect Dunn to follow through with the hit until it was too late and the hit was laid. His head does end up kind of after it going to the ice. That leads to some fisticuffs down in the other end of the ice. Really more of a mob. Whoever the next closest Wild was goes after Dunn, but Dunn was ready for it, immediately drops gloves and kind of throws him to the ice while throwing a couple punches to defend himself. That just turns into just a mass of players all huddled in the corner, shoving each other around. McCann's trying to get some punches in, and then eventually kind of picks a Wild player and just does we're angry at each other. We're going to go over here. That kind of thing. It was at least exciting to watch from a fan perspective for a game that to that point had been relatively low event. Regardless, like I said, Zuccarello would come back later in the game, though I don't think he played much of the rest of the game. And for Dunn, he does end up getting a roughing call for the extracurriculars. They did review it for a potential major penalty on the hit, but they obviously waved that off, seeing that it was a clean hit. There wasn't the head contact, or at least not very much of it, and any of it was incidental. It wasn't directly a hit to the head, which could have led to a major penalty. Meanwhile, whoever it was for the Wild that went after Dunn, might have been Trennan. I don't remember exactly who it was that went after Dunn in the first place, but he gets a double minor for roughing, so they end up giving the Kraken a power play there. The Kraken don't do anything with that particular power play, and then we would get to the first intermission, still scoreless. Unfortunately, as we get into the second period, it doesn't take long for the Wild to open up the scoring as the Kraken once again come out a bit flat to start out the second period, and this time aren't able to lock down the front of their net quite as well as they at least were to start out the game. Yeah, they were not really getting anything going offensively through the first half of the first period, but they at least weren't allowing the Wild much. Here to start out the second, that wasn't really the case. The Wild get down behind the Kraken net, and then it's a quick pass up to Eriksson Ek standing next to the crease, and one touch, it goes as Grubauer's trying to recenter himself. I think it snuck through the 5-hole of Grubauer's pad. Somehow it ends up in the net. Regardless, I mean, for Chandler Stevenson here, you can't be letting Eriksson Ek stand with his stick on the ice at the top of the crease with a player behind the net who has the puck. You got to at least try and get in the passing lane or get in Zuccarello or Eriksson Ek's face to make sure he can't get the shot off. He does. It's 1-0 Wild for Grubauer. There's not much more he can do other than have that post closed off and hope that a shot hits him. It doesn't, at least not enough. And the Kraken find themselves playing from behind again. And not only that, but they send the Wild almost immediately to their third power play of the game. A power play that did look, it got its chances. We'll just say that. Grubauer had to make a couple of pretty nice saves on this particular Wild power play. He's able to make them, so the Kraken still do kill this one off, though it wasn't quite as convincing of a kill as the previous two were. Grubauer was definitely more tested, I think, in this one than the previous two, aside from the breakaway in the first one. But the Kraken are able to kill off a third straight power play, which is not something I think anybody would have expected. If you had said the Wild were going to get 3 power plays in the game, that the Kraken would have killed them all off. But they managed to do it, and then a couple minutes later, they get their second chance on the power play themselves, and it's just seconds before the puck is in the back of the net. And like I said earlier, it's just a nice passing play from the Kraken, who win the faceoff, get up to the point, then back down to McCann. Instead of trying to skate into a shot like we've seen McCann do from that spot quite frequently, it's still something the Kraken, we've seen it since the inaugural season, but it's still something the Kraken like to try and set up, is let McCann skate into a shot a little bit. But this time, instead of firing off a shot, which I suppose he probably would have if he had seen a window to shoot the puck at, but instead he fires it off to the far face-off circle where Chandler Stevenson is waiting for it. He handles it a couple of times before spotting, standing on the back door with his stick on the ice, Jordan Eberle puts the puck on his stick, and Eberle just kind of has to let it bank off his stick and into the net. He helps it along a little bit, but it's a pretty easy tap-in goal for Eberle with a nice pass from Stevenson. The power play goal, quick strike for the Kraken, ties the game, and would, with no other special teams the rest of the night, mean that the Kraken finish the night +1 in special teams. Actually, sorry, I forgot the Kraken did have one more power play later in the second period that goes absolutely nowhere. It was... Now that I remember it, I remember why I didn't remember it. They did almost nothing on this power play. They don't get a shot on goal. They don't get particularly close getting a shot on goal. They barely get into the offensive end. It was a pretty inept power play, so a very forgettable one. Regardless, the Kraken still go +1 on the night, killing all 3 Wild power plays and going 1 for 3 themselves. And as far as that power play, that's kind of also how the rest of the second period would go. Relatively uneventful. Not really as much as far as dangerous opportunities either way. Both teams playing the defense first type of system that both teams are very, I don't know how known the Kraken are for being defense first. They're known that way for us who follow the team, but or at least around the league, this is a style that, like the Wild and the Islanders, for example, and even the Predators, I suppose, have kind of made themselves known for playing a defensive first, try and take advantage of any mistakes that might be made, but you're really trying to not make any mistakes defensively more than anything else. And that does lead to what is not always the most high-flying, exciting hockey, and that's kind of what the rest of this second period was, until the very end, where there's a couple of chances for the Wild, but nothing that dramatically dangerous. Grubauer still looking very sharp. I mean, honestly, he was just reading plays well and in the right spots at the right times. He's still giving up more rebounds than Decord usually gives up when he's playing at his best, but he's controlling the rebounds better than what we've kind of been used to with Grubauer, and he certainly seems to know where the puck is at pretty much any given time, which makes you feel a little bit more confident that he is going to stop the puck when it's shot at him. And well, he did that pretty much every time that he had the chance in this game. Unfortunately, as we get into the third period, about midway through the third period, not nearly as late as the 2.5 minutes left when the Red Wings scored to take the lead, but still well into the third period, 6-7 minutes into it, the Wild are going to score again, and it's, again, I can't put this on Grubauer whatsoever. It's an Eriksson Ek shot pass towards the net. I mean, it would have been a shot if it wasn't for the wide open Marcus Johansson standing right in front of Grubauer. I don't know if he's screening, looking for a deflection. Regardless, Eriksson Ek shoots it at him, probably looking for a bit of a deflection on the way, and that's just what he gets, as Marcus Johansson, looking a little bit more acrobatic and offensively minded than we remember him in Seattle, makes a nice little deflection of the puck between his legs as he kind of jumps over it. It goes right between his legs, behind him, into the top corner of the net past Grubauer. Again, nothing he can do here. Not only is he partially screened by Marcus Johansson on the shot, but then the puck gets deflected. He's, I mean, like, if it had been a clean pass to him in front of the net, he would have had all the time in the world to just make a move on Grubauer. He was left completely alone there. A defensive blunder from the Kraken that finds a way to cost them, and not just cost them in the moment and put them on the back foot the rest of the game, as they try to find a way to get through the Wild defense to find another goal. They're never really able to. They can get into the offensive end. They start kind of taking a little bit more chances offensively, but just aren't generating anything dangerous out of it. It takes them a long time to get Grubauer pulled, and once they do get him pulled, they don't even really get a chance at 6-on-5. It's pretty quick after Grubauer's pulled. It's admittedly, as empty net goals go, a pretty nice one from Kirill Kaprizov, who, standing in front of his own crease, is kind of whirl around, smacks it backhand almost 200 feet, 190 feet the other way, straight down the middle to give the Wild the empty net goal, which would pretty much end it. Still, the Kraken off the faceoff would win the faceoff, pull Grubauer, and hardly get it into the offensive end before it's back the other way and into the empty net again. Two quick empty net goals for the Wild. The Kraken actually get a bit of a chance at 5-on-5 in the waning seconds, but it wouldn't have mattered even if they'd scored. And that gets us to that final score of 4-1. So a very tight, close game, but the Kraken find a way to make the one big defensive mistake in the third period that costs them. It costs them at least the 1 point in the standings. And yeah, you tack on the 2 empty netters at the end to make the scorebook look a little bit worse than what the game actually was. But for the Kraken, it's 2 games in a row of blown chances. And again, there still are some positives and silver linings to take away from this game. The special teams part of it, not only did the penalty kill look actually competent and like an NHL penalty kill, killing off all 3 of them, and they gave up a couple chances here and there, but it seemed like they're starting to get a little bit more away from the wedge in one approach. They were mixing it up kind of with a upside down wedge, like more of a diamond formation and a little bit of boxing. It was hard to tell exactly what they were mixing up, but it seems like they, far too late, but have finally admitted that they needed to try something, anything else. The first one, I wondered if it was just that Chandler Stevenson was the one in the box for the Kraken, so while it might not improve your chances of winning a face-off, it doesn't improve your chances of having actually defensive-minded forwards on the kill. Regardless, even with Stevenson on the ice, they still killed the next 2, so I don't know, you can really blame it all on him, obviously. Still, they killed all 3 there, and they do get the 1 power play goal on a nice passing play. Didn't really seem like they learned the lesson on the next power play, which was the worst one of the night, but at least it's a power play goal and a game where they're in the positive on special teams, which have been few and far between. The other, I suppose, big bright spot or silver lining here in this one was the play of that Shane Wright line. Wright, Kakko, and Newman. They don't end up scoring for the Kraken, but they were certainly the closest to scoring at 5-on-5, and I would say maybe not. Well, actually, maybe they were easily the best line in this game. I think I can say that they were easily the best line in this game for the Kraken, and hopefully that means that Newman can get some more opportunities. As for the Stevenson line, maybe not so much. Tolvanen and Marchman on either side of that one. It looks every bit of an extra parts line. I mean, I feel bad for Tolvanen more than anything with that line, because it just seems like he's tossed into this extra parts line that doesn't really know how to play with each other or make much of anything happen. I don't know. I don't really know what else you do. The Beniers line with Eberle and McCann certainly makes the most sense. Those are your 2 best wingers with your best center. You don't want to mess up. I don't think you want to mess with the right line as long as they're playing well and as long as Wright is playing well and you're starting to see some, good things from Newman. You want to keep that going. And then the 4th line, what are you going to do? You're going to send Tolvanen into the 4th line again? I don't think that's going to help him at all. You're certainly not going to give less time to Chandler Stevenson. He does provide things offensively, and you really afford to take more offense away. And then Mason Marchment is there, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you probably could put Mason Marchment on the fourth line, though maybe that takes away some trade value, so maybe just keep him going there. I don't know. I mean, honestly, maybe you don't want to put them on the fourth line because that might screw up how the fourth line is playing, as they played another pretty decent game for, the amount of time they were on the ice, which wasn't huge, but they did nearly tie the game actually after the Wild took the 2-1 lead. Within seconds, the Kraken looked like they've scored again, but it was batted in pretty nicely. I mean, it was a very high skill play from Ty Cartier, good awareness and had hand-eye coordination to bat the puck in with his stick as it's floating above the net. But the key there is that it was very clearly floating above the net, and he definitely hit it in with a high stick. So, yeah, definitely the right call to wave that one off. But considering that it was a quick response goal, they had the whole goal horn, the goal song, all the excitement, and then the official comes out, waits for the goal song to stop, and then says, no goal. Bit of a buzzkill, but they got the call correct. Aside from that, I think we can close this one out, get to some Kraken 3 stars. Do we have more than 1 star in this game? Well, the first star, as always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide stars, you can support more than you already are by watching at this point by going to Patreon through the link below and supporting there as well. Grubauer is the easy first star for the Kraken. He was fantastic. I'm not going to say that there's a goalie controversy or anything like that. Like, it's still Decord's net. But right now, Grubauer is the better goalie. He's played better over the last couple of weeks. Decord's looked a bit shaky the last couple of games. It seems like his confidence isn't quite there. He's not reading plays as well as he normally does. Meanwhile, Grubauer out of nowhere looks, aside from the rebounds, like what we expect usually from Decord. He also doesn't play the puck nearly as well as Decord does, in spite of trying occasionally, but he is reading plays well, seeing the puck well, and yeah, it's going well for Grubauer right now, which is a very nice thing to see. It's a bit of a shame that the Kraken are still kind of finding a way to waste what has been a good season from Grubauer so far in limited play. His record now with this game, this is his first regulation loss that he's credited for. Again, the goaltender win-loss stat is kind of dumb in my opinion, but Grubauer's record on the season right now is 4-1-1 after this game, with this being his first regulation loss. So he's playing very well. The Kraken are getting good goaltending from Grubauer. We know that they were getting pretty good goaltending from Murray, although the rest of the team wasn't really playing well in front of Murray. And then Decord, we still trust that he'll get it turned around and figured out. So if they can get it figured out in front of their goaltending, they are getting very good goaltending, and that was no exception in this game. Grubauer was fantastic and gave them every chance to win. Meanwhile, with the rest of the team, I mean, look, it's the 6th straight loss, and I can't think of anyone obvious to give a star. I guess we could maybe give one to Vince Dunn just for the huge hit. So why not? Vince Dunn can have a star for the huge hit, and he didn't really do anything overly bad defensively that I can think of. So we'll give Dunn a 2nd star, and we'll call it there. Let me know down in the comments, though, if there's a 3rd star that you want to give out. Like I said, the right line played well, so maybe pick one of the guys from there. Otherwise, again, I guess we'll hope for better against the Kings in the next game, a Kings team that, like the Wild, were playing pretty well coming into this game. I suppose the Wild had not had a great game previous in Vancouver, but they had been on a hot streak coming into these last couple games, and yeah, for the Kraken, they stay toe-to-toe, but still find a way to get 0 points in the standings. So games against the Kings are always interesting, I suppose, and we'll see what happens. Until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.